and welcome to the Week 6 edition of SSN Gameday. I'm your host, Adam Hipsky, joined alongside my partners, Davis Gerig on the outside and Dominic Sicilia on the inside. 5 weeks have passed, 4 regular season weeks to go. We'll start out with the recap of Week 5, and we'll start with none other than Pike and Lawrence Central. Lawrence Central picking up a close win there. LC's been towing the line a ton of times this year. This time goes their way. They win 32-28 takeaways from that game.
Yeah, I think Pike is really a trap team. They're 0-5. I think this is one of the best 0-5 teams we've probably seen, maybe in Indiana high school history. This is a team that's probably going to finish somewhere in that 2-7, 1-8 range, but they're not that bad. They just have, according to John Harrell, the hardest schedule in Indiana. But it was good to see Pike hang in there with LC and give them a challenge.
That game was interesting to me, Adam, because I think, coming into that game, we thought the Lawrence Central defense would do a lot more than they did. And they gave up 28 points to a Pike team who, like Dom mentioned, is a good team, a solid team. They've had a hard schedule. But I expected Lawrence Central to not give up 28 points to that team.
Moving on, HCC conference battle, Brownsburg Fishers. Fishers coming off that heartbreaking Mudsock loss, 28-27 in overtime to HSC. Looked for a bounce back, huge win at home against Brownsburg. They couldn't do it. Brownsburg moves to 5-0, one of the 4 undefeated remaining teams in 6A. Thoughts on Brownsburg edging out Fishers there?
So, this is a Brownsburg team that's really solid. We've seen them pick up wins against Cathedral, who obviously we know Cathedral's one of the best teams in the state year in, year out, and Ben Davis, who has improved from last year. They have a stud quarterback in Thomas Gotkowski. And then you see Fishers play them, and they handled their own. It was kind of out of hand, but considering it was within 2 scores, I would say that's a win for Fishers.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Fishers keeping it within 2 scores. They really played a fantastic game. Really, didn't expect Fishers to come that close to beating Brownsburg, but, it was, they were within 7 points for a while. They were tied until halftime, so it was really cool to see, Fishers come back and, get a loss that goes on their transcript as a good loss.
Moving on, staying in the HCC, one of our more surprising scores we saw last Friday, Noblesville absolutely being dominated by the Zionsville Eagles, something that I thought Noblesville had taken the step forward. We saw them play Westfield really closely. Don't know if that was a fluke or not, but Zionsville beats them 39-7. We'll see Zionsville here tonight, see if they're for real or if they just had a good game against Noblesville.
Yeah, I think Zionsville is a team that can explode on any Friday. Their offense is elite, one of the best in the state. And they have a pretty solid defense too. Not the best, but it's all right. And I think they could really play with HSC tonight, but we'll see. In terms of Noblesville, I think that game with Westfield was in fact a fluke. That was a rivalry game. I think it was something similar to what we see with a lot of other rivalry games. They play close just because there's a lot of other stuff going into it. I don't think this Noblesville team is very good this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think Noblesville can do much after, their 2 wins at the start of the season. They just haven't proved anything to me, and I think, moving forward, this team's not going to be what you expect them to be. As for Zionsville, they have a very good offense. Eugene Hilton being the star of that offense, that's going to come into play tonight, and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. You've got the talented dual threat quarterback Christian Abney heading to Ball State next year. Threw for 220 yards, ran for another 60. Obviously, the talented quarterback for Zionsville, and we'll see him here tonight. Center Grove, North Central. Center Grove bounces back, dominates North Central 36-0. Center Grove, we talked about tough schedules in Indiana, Center Grove has had one of the toughest, but they've stood tall for every test, including this one, North Central beating them 36-0.
Yeah, North Central is one of those teams where, personally, I got to wonder what they're doing down there because it's been around 3 years now, and I don't think they're going to win a game this year. It's going on 3 years where they haven't won a game, and they got to make some changes because every week I think there's not a team that looks at them in their schedule and fears that they're going to lose.
Yeah, North Central hasn't proved anything to me. Center Grove, I expected this to be a blowout game. North Central plays Carmel tonight. I'm not sure how that game will go for them, but, as for last week, I expected that outcome, and, Center Grove keeps moving.
Moving into the MIC, Ben Davis, Warren Central. Warren Central, we thought they might be legit at the start of the year. They've taken a couple tough losses this season, but Ben Davis obviously lost to Brownsburg early on. Ben Davis is kind of getting on a roll here, and they beat Warren Central 42-28.
Yeah, I think Ben Davis is really a top 5 caliber team in the state. I think we could see them make an appearance in the state championship. I just think that's how crazy this bottom half of the bracket could end up. There are a lot of solid teams in there. The other side, not so much. We kind of know how it's going to play out. There are going to be some good matchups, but really that bottom side, I think Ben Davis could make a run. I think this Ben Davis team is solid, and I think they have one of the best run games in the state. Obviously, combining that with Thomas Gatkowski, and you have a really high-powered offense.
Yeah, Gatkowski, 388 yards, 4 touchdowns last week. You know, that's something you don't see a lot from high school football. But Ben Davis's offense has really proved something to me, and along with their defense, like you said, this team's going to be scary coming down the line.
And then a quick update on the Himmelman Southeastern Sectional. Homestead last weekend lost to Fort Wayne Snyder 49-21. Homestead obviously not in the position that they want to be this year. Now 3-2 on the season.
Yeah, that's rough for Homestead because going into this game, they had statistically one of the best defenses in the state, and really just letting that Fort Wayne Snyder team do whatever they wanted to them that night didn't really end up good.
Yeah, you know, Homestead usually seems like a team that has been decent in the past. I still, again, haven't been proved this year by anything they've done, and giving up 49 points to Fort Wayne Snyder, you know, that's not what you want to see out of them. So,
and then the other Fort Wayne team in the sectional, Fort Wayne Northrop, moves to 1-4 on the season. They lose to Fort Wayne Concordia Lutheran 24-17. Sectional 3, obviously you've got the 2 Fort Wayne teams and then HSC and Fishers, but it looks like the Fort Wayne team's struggling this year.
Yeah, Fort Wayne Northrop is statistically the second worst team in Indiana.
Yeah, I think, you know, this sectional is going to be run by the 2 Fishers teams. Obviously, both these Fort Wayne teams haven't looked the best, but in sectionals, anything can happen, and we've seen it in the past. I just think, you know, for now, I just think, you know, the 2 Fishers teams are going to run this.
Especially, though, we're going to see those Fishers teams. If they have to play in Fort Wayne, that's an hour and a half drive. We could see these games get kind of close, such as Cathedral did with Penn.
Moving on to our Week 6 preview. After this, we'll send it to Boothby's board. The Week 6 slate kind of headlined by Westfield, Brownsburg, Center Grove plays Lawrence Central, and then obviously the game we have here tonight, HSC and Zionsville. However, we'll start out with Lawrence North Ben Davis. We talked about the huge performance from quarterback Thomas Gatkowski last week. Thoughts on this one tonight?
I don't think Lawrence North is a very good team at all. We've seen their 2 wins are against not great teams, and in the games that they've played really decent opponents, they've gotten blown out. I think this is another blowout for that Lawrence North team, and they've really taken a step back since last year.
I think Ben Davis's offense is going to be too much for this Lawrence North team to handle. I just think this Lawrence North defense hasn't proved anything to me, and like you said, their 2 wins come against not, you know, top-tier opponents. So I think this game was going to go Ben Davis's way.
Yeah, I think Ben Davis's record is very misleading. They're 3-2, but those 2 losses, Brownsburg and Center Grove, 2 of the best teams, if not the 2 best teams in the state of Indiana. So we'll move on. Center Grove, speaking of Center Grove, Lawrence Central. The Lawrence Central defense looked very strong all season. Did not have a good game last week. Can they bounce back tonight, Center Grove?
Yeah, this is a game that I think a lot of people won't really look into, but this could be a potential upset if you really look at it. This is a Lawrence Central team that I think could beat anyone. Now, it's going to be rough at Center Grove, but they have one of, if not the best defense in the state. Ton of D1 recruits on that team. But Center Grove is obviously the dynasty. They've lost 1 game in the last 3 years.
I agree. I think, you know, Lawrence Central could go out there and beat any team on any day. With that being said, though, traveling to Center Grove and that offense of Center Grove, that firepower they have, I just don't know if the Lawrence Central defense is going to be able to bounce back from last week.
We talked about Pike in the opening. Warren Central, obviously, they've struggled. They're 2-3 this year, playing an 0-5 Pike team. Thoughts, can Pike pick up their first win tonight at home?
I don't think so. And as much as I want to see this Pike team do it because they've been so close against a lot of pretty good opponents, I think this is going to be a tough game for both teams. I would like to see Pike pick up this win because they've had a lot of close games coming up against a lot of close teams. But Warren has actually gotten it done against some good teams. But we've also seen them lose some games that they probably should have won this year, so it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think agreed. I think both teams are going to play, well. I think it'll be a closer game than most people expect. I just think, it's going to be a tough game, and we'll ride with it and see what happens.
Westfield, Brownsburg. Westfield coming off a really solid game against HSC. HSC edged that one out 26-21. Then Brownsburg, obviously, we mentioned it earlier, one of the 4 remaining undefeated teams in Indiana high school 6A football. What are you guys' thoughts on that one? At Brownsburg tonight at 7.
I think we could see an upset this week, and I think if we do, this is going to be one of the games that's up there. This is a Westfield team that ever since week 1, where everyone really checked them off, they've been getting better and better. Obviously, they had that loss to HSC, but HSC is really getting up there. They're looking better and better every single week, and I think this one could be a lot closer than people think.
I think it'll be closer than people think. Brownsburg's offense is so outstanding, and just a firepowered offense. Just have a lot of weapons. Westfield's defense, didn't play horrible last week. Obviously, HSC had a couple of times where they just drove down the field and were able to get it done. I think it'll be an interesting game, and I think, whatever happens, it's going to be interesting.
I think the main implication tonight is you look at the conference. Brownsburg and HSC both 2-0, Westfield 1-1, because obviously the other one of Westfield's losses came to New Pal outside of the conference. If Westfield can pick it up tonight, that HSC Brownsburg game at the end of the season could mean a lot for the conference battle, possibly looking at a 3-way tie. So something to keep your eye on tonight going forward in the future.
Also, it is early, but this could be an elimination game for Westfield as well to win this conference.
Yep.
Another thing I think to look at for this game, it's going to be a great matchup between Jaden Whitetaker and Cole Ballard. I think they're 2 of the best quarterbacks in the state, and I want to see who plays better in this game.
And then we'll move on to the game that we'll have here on Southeastern Sports Network, Zionsville and HSC. Zionsville looks really solid this year. They're 4-1 after their move to 6A, their first year in this class. And then HSC 5-0, one of the 4 remaining undefeated teams, joining Brownsburg, Crown Point, and Carroll. Thoughts on that one tonight?
This is a Zionsville team that's looked really good. They could be 5-0 easily, joining those other teams. Their one loss was a close loss to Westfield, but they have a great offense. And I think they're one of the best offenses in the state, really high-powered. And their defense has looked really good, allowing 30 points in the last 3 weeks. So I just want to see how this Zionsville team plays overall.
Yeah, I really like this game this week. Zionsville, Eugene Hilton, the firepower they have with him, along with other weapons on that offense. Their defense has looked outstanding. Going to the HSC's offense had some things to prove at the start of the year. I think they've come together and really, set the tone with Eli Brantman, Jalen Alexander, that offensive line they have. I think this is going to be a good game. I think it's just going to come down to, possession time.
Yep. And I think the big thing here is Zionsville's given up 14 points in their last 2 games. That's going to be tough. You look at, HSC, their offense has been able to score on not as talented defenses. They've got, I think, another good defensive challenge here, similar to Westfield and Zionsville tonight. And that'll do it for our Week 6 preview. We'll send it to our analyst, Alex Boothby, as he will break down his main games that he likes on tonight's slate. And we'll be back with our game picks right after this segment of Boothby's Board.
I'm Alex Boothby, and welcome to Boothby's Board. I'm a football player here at HSC, and here are my top 3 games for this week, as well as my takes on them. First things first, Center Grove versus Lawrence Central. Center Grove coming off a solid win last week, but having lost their first game in 18 games, or 2 years, 2 weeks ago. Still a little bit of that question mark on how can they respond to adversity. While Lawrence Central, not the start of the year that they wanted to have, while they have a really talented defense and an explosive offense. I think this could be a really interesting game, but more so Center Grove, if all things go their way, they will win this game. I have Center Grove -7. Next up, we have Pike versus Warren Central. Pike, again, not the start of the season that they wanted to have, but John Harrell does have them rated as the hardest schedule in Indiana 6A football. While Warren Central, again, not as good as they wanted to be coming up the start of the season, heading into Week 6. But I think they are the better team in this situation. They have an explosive offense, really good defense. They're talented all around and could be a really good team. But Pike, again, a talented team just with a really hard schedule, and they've been cutting some close games with some of the best teams in the state. I have Warren Central -3. And then my game of the week, Brownsburg versus Westfield. Westfield coming off a tough loss to us last week, cutting us close by losing to us by 5, while Brownsburg has just been rolling through the competition all the way through Week 5, headed into Week 6. Westfield, really solid team, have a good defense, really good coaches over there. One of the better quarterbacks in the state, Cole Ballard, in my opinion. Explosive offense, some really good wide receivers. While Brownsburg, I mean, there's just no need to hype them up more than they already have been. They are the best team in the state right now. Really good quarterback, really good receiving offense. They can run the ball, really good D-line. All around, just a great team. So I have Brownsburg in this game -7. That's it for me here at Boothby's Board. Back to Adam at the desk.
And thank you, Alex Boothby, for this week's edition of Boothby's Board. Now on to our final segment of the evening, game picks. We'll start out with Fishers and Avon. Fishers coming off 2 tough losses, but against arguably the 2 best teams in the HSC and Brownsburg. Thoughts on that one, Fishers Avon tonight?
Yeah, I think Fishers is going to pick up a win here. I don't think there's going to be any question during the whole game. I think this Avon team is the worst team in the Indianapolis area for 6A. And other than Mason Reynolds, I don't think there's any players on this team that can give Fishers any type of scare.
Agreed. I think Fishers' Fishers' run offense is way too good for this Avon defense. Like you said, I haven't seen anything from this Avon team. Last in the HCC, I just haven't been proved. So I think Fishers brings this one out.
Yep. I think Fishers' defense is the key to this one. As long as they can get stops and get off the field, I think Fishers' offense will take care of itself. I'm going to take Fishers 31-7 here tonight. Moving on, Warren Central Pike. Pike 0-5, looking to pick up their first win. Warren Central looking for a momentum-building win to move on to 500 on the season. What do you guys have tonight?
Yeah, I think the key thing is Pike looking for their first win. I think they're hungry. I think Warren, we've seen them kind of slack in a lot of games. They kind of got really high on themselves after beating King High School out of Detroit, but that win isn't really looking as great as it did originally. And I think Pike's going to go in and win this one at home.
I disagree with that. I just think Warren, being 2-3 this year, I think they're looking for something they can, find. Pike, as they're a good 0-5 team, I don't think they're better than Warren. I think this game will be closer than people expect, but I'm going to go with Warren here.
Yeah, I'm going to build off that. I think Pike's got the talent to keep it close, but I think Warren Central, who's been in this position and has had to grind out ball games, I think that they can do it tonight. I got them winning 21-17. However, Pike, I think they're going to be in the hunt this season. I think they can really get maybe win a couple games down the stretch. Moving on, Lawrence North and Ben Davis. Ben Davis, obviously, with the good quarterback play as of late. They've got a tough one tonight against Lawrence North.
Yeah, I think Ben Davis wins this one, and it's not going to be close. Elijah Price is one of the best running backs in the state. Combine that with probably the second best junior quarterback in the state in Thomas Gajkowski. We saw him go crazy last week with 4 touchdowns and over 300 yards. I think this one is going to be really a Ben Davis show all night, especially because they're at home.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ben Davis as well. I think their offense, like I mentioned earlier, is just going to be too hard for this Lawrence North defense to handle. I'm going to go 42-17 Ben Davis.
I agree. Ben Davis offensively looks way too good. Lawrence North, I don't think the talent's there this year. I think typically they're a pretty strong program. Not this year. I'm going to go Ben Davis 35-0. Moving on, Lawrence Central, Center Grove. Lawrence Central, talented defense, but obviously their toughest test offensively tonight was Center Grove.
Yeah, I've picked Center Grove to get upset twice this year, once against Carmel and once against Ben Davis. Neither of them happened, although they came really close. I'm not going to make that mistake again, although I think this could be a really close game. I think Center Grove wins this one. I think this Lawrence Central defense is going to lose control going up against probably the best offense they've faced all year. I'm liking Center Grove 38-21.
I agree. I think this Center Grove offense is going to give this Lawrence Central defense too many problems. I do think it'll be closer because, I just think Lawrence Central's looking for something. 3-2 team, a really good 3-2 team. Looking for something, but I'm going to go Center Grove 35-21.
I think the big thing that we're looking for is you talked about getting stops. Lawrence Central has to get stops. However, it's their offense. Can they put points up on Center Grove? Because Center Grove is going to put a couple drives together against their defense. You can't help it. Lawrence Central's defense is very talented. However, Center Grove is going to be able to score. But can Lawrence Central, can Bryson Luter put up points against Center Grove is the key to the game. I think they'll put together a couple scoring drives early, but I think Center Grove, once they settle in, they'll be fine. I'm going to go Center Grove 31-14. But something interesting, Center Grove beat this Lawrence Central team 48-0 last year. Lawrence Central much improved from a year ago. Something to keep your eye on and think about while watching tonight's game. Next up, moving into the HGC, Brownsburg 5-0, Westfield, a couple losses, but they're still a very talented team tonight, 7 o'clock.
Yeah, this is a great Westfield team. I would look for Kendall Garrett to have a huge game. He played really well last year. Played really well last week against HSE. And I think this is a game that could be really, really close. And I think Westfield might win this one. That being said, though, right now I can't go against the Bulldogs. I think they're the best team in the state. They've been playing crazy. I'm liking them to win this game 24-17.
Yeah, Brownsburg, I think, is just easily the number one team in the state. We see them beat Cathedral. Not only beat them, but they beat them by a couple scores. So this Cathedral team that I thought was going to be able to beat Brownsburg, but Brownsburg showed what they can do. As for Westfield, Westfield's also a very good 3-2 team. We'll see what happens tonight, but I'm going to go Brownsburg, and I'm going to go 38-24.
Yeah, I think this game would be a different story if it was at Westfield. Brownsburg has the home field advantage tonight. I think that plays the difference. I'm going to take Brownsburg 35-24. I think the home field advantage is going to play a role in Westfield's offense. And I'm going to have Brownsburg picking up a couple stops late to seal this one. Moving on to the game of the week. Myself and Davis Gerig will be on the call, so we cannot make a prediction. However, we'll give you the keys of the game. But we'll start out with Dominic with your pick tonight.
I'm liking HSC in this one, 5-0. I don't think Zionsville is the team that's going to knock them out of that undefeated category. I think HSC is going to pick up their 6th win on the year. This is huge for HSC. They haven't been this good in a long time. They haven't had a record like this in a very long time. And I don't think that this is going to be the week that they lose.
My keys to the game, I think these offenses are going to have to prove something tonight against these two amazing defenses. I think both these offenses are going to have to come up big. As for the defenses, they're going to have to get some stops, find a way to stop the other's offense. And if that happens, it'll be a really close game.
Yeah, Hamlin Southeastern has heard about it all week. Their first 5-0 start since 2008. I think that after picking up those 2 big wins, beating Fishers in the Mudsock rivalry and then avenging last year's sectional loss to Westfield, I think how Hamlin Southeastern handles that, not getting too far ahead of themselves, taking it one game at a time. They got to take care of Zionsville tonight. I think the key to the game is how they handle maybe some adversity tonight that they may see. Zionsville's a talented team, no doubt. 4-1 on the year. I think if Hamlin Southeastern stays within themselves, gets the run game established, I think they've got a good chance of pulling it out. They got to stop Christian Abney and Eugene Hilton because those two are a pretty talented duo, one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in all of Indiana. And that'll do it for this week's edition of SSN Game Day. I'm Adam Hipsky, joined alongside Davis Gerig and Dominic Sicilia. We'll be back for the call on tonight's Hamlin Southeastern Zionsville Conference matchup. Thank you, Alex Boothby, our analyst, for that edition of Boothby's Board. And that'll do it for this week's edition of SSN Game Day. We'll see you in a bit.